Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot of great conversations lined up for you. First and foremost, I'm asking the question, should we put our great pioneer, Harriet Tubman, on parenting? I'm going to bring up to speed on what that effort is looking like in the Congress. Also, folks, where there's a conversation about renaming the fallen bridge, Francis Scott Key Bridge, renaming it in the honor of a black man. We'll talk a little bit about that effort. And later on, we check in with Coach Trinette L. Collier to talk about Boris Kodjoe on his children's social media. And I'm asking, do you agree or disagree that parents should be on their children's social media? And then we also look at the issue of should kids have privacy? We'll have that discussion with Coach Trinette, joined by my brother Shanitu Wakofor for the first half. So stay with us. It's going to be actually on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Woo! All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. We are streaming live on our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure you go to our website today, download the app for free, follow us on social media at Black Star Network, and of course, we ask you to drop something in the bucket for us. Also, folks, we are streaming on Amazon platforms, so you can find us on the Amazon News on your Fire TV. We're on Amazon Prime Video, where you can just look at the Prime Video app under Live TV The News and find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video The Live TV The News. We're also on the Freeview Network. We can find us on now under News for Black Star Network, as well as Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV The News and Opinion. All right, big shout out to all of the culture crew that's gathering in the chat. Oh man, what a great show we got for y'all today. So big shout out to all the culture crew that's just doing the live on Big Brother Roland Martin's Facebook channel, Facebook page and YouTube channel. We're also we're also being seen on the X platform. So big shout out to all the culture crew there, everybody that's want to be a part of the conversation. Let me jump right in. I'm joined by my brother Shanitu Wakofor, who is an activist. He's a young scholar, as well as a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, as we talk about some of these big stories. Brother Shanitu, it's always good to connect with you again, brother. Thank you so much for joining us today. How you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. First story I wanted to talk about, brother, was this piece around Harriet Tubman. Now, there's been a lot of conversation about getting our great shero, Harriet Tubman, on the $20 bill. That's still happening, but for now, it looks like Congress is moving in more of an honorary space. And this is something that we're seeing that's being led by Representative Cori Bush and a few other congresspersons who have moved forward on putting Harriet Tubman's face on a commemorative coin collection, so that she will never be forgotten. Take a look at this. Is the latest from the Griot on this situation, and this is written by one of our contributors, Ashley Banks. But she said on Tuesday that Procter & Gamble sponsored the event at the U.S. Capitol to celebrate the Tubman commemorative coin program. In attendance were U.S. Representatives Beatty, Gregory Meeks, the Democrat out of New York, Senator Sherrod Brown out of Ohio, Woody Keon Jr., the CEO of the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center, and Karen Hill, CEO of the Harriet Tubman Home. The coin collection is comprised of $5 gold coins, $1 silver coin, and half-dollar coins, which all have images of Tubman and represents different stages of her fight for justice, including contributions she made during the U.S. Civil War and her partnership with the Union Army to free more than 700 enslaved people, Brother Shanitu. And we learned about Harriet Tubman. I remember talking about Harriet Tubman when I was a child, brother. So she is one of the great ones. But I want to get your take on this before we take our first pause. Do you think that it is necessary? Should we even be advocating for this? Because yes, she's on a commemorative coin collection. Her memories, there it is. That's the look that they putting on this for this coin. Her face, her history, her legacy will always be a part of history. But I don't know, brother. Sinead do putting her on a coin, and there are still, and I'm gonna share with folks, there's still effort to keep her on, to try to put her on the $20 bill. But what do you make of this? Is this just more like pomp and circumstance, or is this something that you think is like a step? As one congressperson said, this is a step towards accepting that part of, that everyone will accept that part of American history.
I don't think it's any of that. I do think it's, and I'm having to learn myself that two things in this country can be done at the same time, because they were enslaving people and also making economic progress. So I know that this country can do two things at once. I think what this is a matter of importance, strategic importance, cultural importance. But what interests me is on the 1, 5, 10, 20, 50, and 100. First of all, it's all white men.
Right.
And the reason why I think it's significant for Harriet Tubman in particular to be on a physical note of this country is because all of those white men couldn't have done successive things if not for Black slaves, period. There will be nothing to clap about George Washington about. There will be nothing to clap about Ulysses S. Grant about, Andrew Jackson, and so on and so forth. So I look at it from that point of view. This is the low end on that side.
Right.
The other part that I feel is no matter who you put or where you put her on the 20 or on a commemorative coins, as long as those coins will eventually be calculated and distributed with reparations to the Black people, that's how you really make an honor of us, because we don't put anybody else on money that we've also paid. Okay, there's no Hiroshima Nagasaki coin. There is no World War II a dollar bill. There is no Jewish remembrance bill after the Holocaust. Well, there are bills, but there aren't currency bills.
Currency, right.
There we go. So I think for me, I don't want, because what then happens is it turns into a fight over, should it be a commemorative over this? And the real fight is, we need money for things that Black people are owed. And this is yet another way that America is good at dilly-dallying around very important things, but juxtaposing them with things that are kind of important, but not as important as what's in front.
Let's stop right there, because I love where you're going with this. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue to have the conversation. Crew, I want to hear what you got to say on it. Should Harriet Tubman be on currency? Tiana, I'm going to raise your comment up because I'm like you, Tiana. I'm feeling just like you. Will it really make a difference? Let's talk a little bit more about this. I'm checking in from you, my brother Sinead, and I want y'all to stay tuned. We still got a lot more to cover in this first half of the culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Joined by my brother Sinead Wakorfor, who is an activist and diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, as we talk about this latest news story out of Washington, D.C., where there is, they have now put one of our great women of our history, Harriet Tubman, on a commemorative coin collection. And opens up this door, Brother Sinedu, around currency, remembrance, and making sure that we're not forgotten. And I'm a little in the middle about this. Here's why, because part of me is like, when I remember when we first there was discussion about putting her on the $20 bill, I was like, oh, okay, that would be cool. But then now I'm like, man, is this more performative? Is this more window dressing? And I love how you just said that remark before we took our first pause. It's like America has a way of like saying, okay, we're going to dive deep into it and then juxtapose and then add some extra stuff. Next thing you know, your head is spinning because you're like, the next thing you know, and then you come out of the moment and you're like, wait a minute, but did we even get what we originally asked for? And I'm like Tiana, man. Tiana checked in. Tiana, welcome back to the chat. Always good to connect with you, sis. Tiana, you said something. You said, it's very simple. You said, we're not really using money like that. We're not using money like that. So I'm wondering, is this, and look, trust me, I'm not throwing shade on the effort to remember Harriet Tubman. Never will do that. But I am a little bit like, if we're not using money like that, I don't know about y'all, but I mean, are you carrying coins and dollar bills in your wallet nowadays, especially with the way that technology has taken over how we spend money? Like, is this even worth the effort at this point? Brother Sinedu, what's your take on that?
Yeah, and I can't help but think it reminds me. I'm glad that our sister Tiana checked in and brought up about no one's using physical cash, because now this is an argument about something that is important, but theoretically its importance is kind of like, I don't even remember the last time I've seen a $20 bill, if I'm being honest. So I do get that. And I couldn't help but think, I'm like, where have I seen that before? And I couldn't help but think about when the United States was sending food to Palestine, finally, right? When we were airdropping food, but then we found out that some of those food was spoiled. So it's like, you're doing a good thing, but is it really good all the way through? And I don't know. I do think it's important that we see ourselves on money. I really, 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 really do.
I do too.
But remember, we got to be careful. We also said that it's good to see ourselves in government represented, and we also have a Tim Scott and a Herman Cain, rest his soul. I think we have to be careful in getting lost in just representation and getting lost on a shiny thing, because if you remember imperialism and colonialism, that is how they tricked a lot of our people in Africa. They got us shiny, and we were so focused on the shiny thing that we weren't realizing that they were taking from us. And I think about how will this $20 bill or commemorative coin, how will those monies help our communities? And if it's a commemorative coin, think about this. Who will be buying that coin in mass? Black people. So we're now paying the money back into whose coffers? It's not as if it's our government putting this into a full circulation for a greater economical benefit. Because when you put her into the circulation, I just thought about this, you think about somebody in Nigeria, somebody in Botswana, somebody in Ghana, they also will see that $20 bill with a Black woman. That's also somebody in China, somebody in Mumbai, somebody in Marrakesh, somebody in Brunei. They will also see that Black woman. And I think that is important. And I think if we think about that, if we want to talk about representation, we love to talk about representation here in America alone, as if we're not a globalized economy. I think for that reason, her being on the 20 it's non-negotiable, because we need the world to see that the world that
I agree with that. I like that. That's good. I wasn't thinking about that, so I'm happy that you even brought that into the conversation. Congressman Meek said during the ceremony, according to the report by our sister Ashley, she said, the congressman said that the coin collection is a symbol of progression and a mere acknowledgement of the impact Harriet Tubman had on American history, which I think is important, right? That's the whole purpose of us even having conversations about DEI and everything else. Representative Joyce Beatty, the Democrat out of Ohio, she said that this is a great first step, but obviously we want to see her on the $20 bill. The Congresswoman also said she's been in talks with the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, who is saying that the Biden administration is working to getting Tubman's likeness on the currency, which currently features the portrait of Andrew Jackson. And Secretary Yellen revealed that the bill is slated, the $20 bill with Harriet Tubman is slated to be released by 2030. So you're talking about between now in 2030. You're talking about a 6-year period. But Sinedu, I'm going back to what we were talking about. In 6 years, hell, will we know what currency will look like? You know what I'm saying? That's very real. Let me go to what the crew is saying. Official Sanika checking in. You said these symbolic gestures are cute, but they are absolutely worthless when compared to the current racial and economic conditions of this country. Hashtag performative progress. Wow. Lori Parks, you checked in. Thank you, Official Sanika. Lori Parks, you said, I don't deal with debit cards or credit cards. I pay everything they buy is with cash, that I buy is with cash. I'm debt free. Is that thing out there and space goes out there? Those who have those cards are hit cash is king. I hear you. I hear you. And then you don't like my music. You checked in. You said better than having slave-owning rich dudes on our currency. And I agree. I agree. But I think my concern is, Brother Sinedu, that it becomes this thing where, like, you know, say it happens, and then it's like, but see, we got one of your own on the dollar bill. And then we're expected to receive that as some sort of progress. And I'm going back to what Official Sanika said. Yeah, you can have us on the currency, but then what about our economic condition in this country? Does that change? The face on the bill changed, but then we still getting oppressed by the dollar itself. So will that change? We still got to wait. We still got to close the wealth gap in this country. Will that change? What's your take on that, bro?
I think that has less to do with the government and most to do with our representation. And I say that because if America said to Israel, we stand with you without a single dollar or a single bomb, the Israeli network, those people who are the lobbyists, etc., they wouldn't stand for it. And I use them as a great example is because with Israel, for instance, when we make a stance, there is money and legislation behind it always. Why isn't that the same here? Because we'll get the $20 bill and we as a culture will say, well, this is good progress. I don't believe in progress or symbolic progress because that's not enough. Everything has been progress. And I feel like just saying that is a what's the word I'm looking for? Lip service. What we need is, okay, the $20 bill is a great start to now move us into legislation like the anti-lynching bill. What is it? The what's his name? Is it
you're talking about
the he's passed.
You said George Floyd or no?
George Floyd and another one. What's his name? He's in John Lewis.
Oh, John Lewis.
Bill,
yeah.
The John Lewis bill, those bills have not been put into place. Like we have to now tie them into something. Like I love a symbolic stance that is also tied into a political gesture as well. We can't stop at one because that's what. And I used Israel because I like to use people who have successively done exactly what the hell I'm saying. The Israeli folks, the Jewish state, which is, you know, in this country, they'll be able to say, like, we need a center for this and a center for that, and there'll be support there. But we also need anti-harassment towards da-da-da-da-da bill. We need anti-Semitism, something. You know what I'm saying? That's a great strategy. It's a wonderful strategy. And I think the same thing needs to exist here. Give us our $20 bill with our black sister on it, and we thank you for that. But also we need to tie that into some other legislation because we don't want you to feel like your shiny thing was enough.
And very quickly before we take our next pause, I mean, we have to be, and I'm saying we as the people, we as the culture, we have to be very clear about where we stand on this idea of representation. We talked about this before, that representation is all well and good, but at the end of the day, is it enough? Is it enough? And I think representation should happen. I think representation should happen. But I'm with you. Like, I need to see representation and then something of substance behind the representation, because we're going to continue to raise our next generation children, those young people that are coming behind us, to only think that it's good enough to be seen, but not enough to be considered, not enough to have legislation, not enough to have policy that's going to truly sustain our lives and that's going to make our lives better. It's good enough that you're seen because we're represented, but at the same time, we can't pass representation onto the next generation in this country. We need something that's going to lock us into a certain space.
Legislation.
That's the concern I got. That's the concern I got. Look, we got to take another quick pause. Now, let's continue this part of the conversation Because guess what, folks? In Baltimore, of course, with that major disaster of the Francis Scott Key Bridge falling onto that cargo ship, now there is a group of civil rights leaders in Baltimore that are advocating that that particular bridge be renamed from the Francis Scott Key Bridge because of his relationship and participation in the slave trade to a Black person who uplifts civil rights. I want to get your take on that. We're going to hear from Sinead Du. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Game on. State of the Union 2024. Huge night for President Joe Biden.
This was a CBS receipts type of night.
He dragged the hell out of the Supreme Court. And he said, y'all gonna see the power of women.
Trump's brain is melting as we speak.
We want to organize from a place of strength.
There's no confusion whatsoever about what they've done and what they plan to do.
What Donald Trump is doing is presenting a fallacy.
He is convincing them that he's all in it for them, when in fact he's all in it for himself.
We do not feel Joe Biden, in spite of the success that have taken place during this administration economically. There are too many things where we do not feel like he's had our back.
You should also be investing in the barbershops and the beauty salons and the hookah bars and the folks who are going to the club, and there's a way to actually get them registered because we've done it before. But if you don't have folks who understand that dynamic, then you're missing a big opportunity.
So we said we just celebrated. For what? Why did you go to celebrate rather than recommit yourself to the fight if the very thing we went to celebrate has been gutted?
Republicans did not support a lot of the bills that were necessary to keep the country fluid. You can't only love your country when you win, right?
Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut?
This was absolutely the knockdown, drag out that we were really waiting for.
Black voters are the base. They're the most important base of the Democratic Party. There was very few language in this speech. At the time, we see an attack on Black history, an attack on DEI. The end of the BLM racial reckoning thing has come to a complete end because there was nothing in this speech for that.
Our movement has never been grounded in two-party politics in this country. All of our movements ultimately get co-opted by a state that is anti-Black.
They called the old because they knew the way, and they called the young because they were strong. And I believe there is a good combination of that, but we can have ideas and we can have visions and dreams, but we have to have our young people also working beside us because they are strong, and they will run that race, and they will run it to the end.
Activists, organizers, and young people have been pushing this administration to be on the right side of history and to do something about the issues that they care about.
While the Ukraine and Palestine are critical issues, they are not the only global issues.
Not a single Black person who should ever let it come out their mouth that I'm tired. Because there is somebody else who came before us who didn't stop fighting.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my brother Sinead Du. We talked a little bit about what's happening with the efforts of continuing to put Harriet Tubman on our currency. She is now officially on a commemorative coin collection, so we talked a little bit about that. So we've been asking this question, and if y'all remember, there's still the effort of trying to get her on the $20 bill, which is slated to happen in 2030, by 2030 rather, that we should see those $20 bills with her face on it into circulation by that time. Now, of course, that depends upon the politics of that time, and more importantly, because we know that those things could be delayed, as we saw with former President Trump delaying that from happening even sooner. But the fact is, that's what's on the agenda. Now, as we look at that situation, let's go to another place. Let's talk about what happened in Baltimore with that disaster and the falling down of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And we've talked about it here. Brother Roland talked about us all over the news. Now, folks, there's a group of civil rights leaders in Baltimore who have moved forward to say, okay, now that this bridge is down, let's have a real conversation about the renaming of the bridge from Francis Scott Key to another person who is who has done the work of civil rights. Now, first, let me tell you about this group. The Caucus of African American Leaders, whose members include the NAACP and the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, among others, has been urging Governor Wes Moore and the Maryland General Assembly to reconsider naming the bridge, folks, because of the controversial figure of Francis Scott Key and his stance on slavery. They suggested that it be renamed after Representative Farajii Mitchell, who serves as the first Black Marylander to be elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1970. According to Mr. Carl Snowden, who is the convener for the Caucus of African American Leaders, he said that Farajii Mitchell spent his entire life, creating a bridge between the African American community and literally the larger society. So in that case, this is a different part of the conversation, Brother Shanedu, of naming and representation. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I agree. I think if you ask me, I mean, the truth of the matter is no one's perfect. But I think, when you know better, you do better. And we do it all the time. I think about, for instance, the first thing that came to my head is I think about what we now know as HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, originally was called gay-related immunodeficiency disease, right? But then people knew better. They got more educated, got more information, and decided that no, it's not we learned that it wasn't a gay disease, it was a human disease, and the name changed, and so on and so forth. I think the problem with America in general is we think that everything in America is stone. Every decision we make, every constitution, every word that we've said is in stone, and things can be changed because it should never have been named after Francis Scott Key, because in theory, Francis Scott Key, if you look at it, he does not follow the quote unquote values that America is supposed to stand for. Now, if we stand on the values of racism and bigotry, then he is aptly named. But I think, and I'm taking this to a bigger level, I think there needs to be a federal, local, and state commission on naming conventions in this country, because we shouldn't wait for infrastructure to fall down and say, why is that bridge that I'm crossing named after somebody who was very racist to the people who've always been the majority in that area in the first place? Let's start there. Right. I think it's a great idea to rename it after this Karen Mitchell. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a great time. And Wes Moore is very, very intelligent, not only as a politician but as a businessman. I think if he's wise and well advised, he will use this moment to do that naming convention thing I said, to say what else in Baltimore is ill named, what else in my state is ill named. Can we look into that? Because these are all small.
But I'm with you. I'm with you, and it's like the statue. Y'all remember that period of time where they were taking down statues, and even I remember I was living in Baltimore at that time, and I think former Mayor Catherine Pugh was in office at the time. She had certain statues removed in Baltimore because they were statues of slaveholders, right? Slave owners. And it's like, now for me personally, keep them statues up so it serves as a reminder of where this country used to be, and in some cases still is, right? Because you can take the statues down. And I'm not necessarily like upset about renaming the bridge, but it's really the thinking of the people, the culture. Like if you cross that bridge, bro, are you still saying, hey man, the Francis Scott Key Bridge? Or is it, hey man, stop, make sure y'all cross the Farajii Mitchell Bridge? When in BWI, the airport in Baltimore was renamed the Thurgood Marshall Airport. But is that part of, you know what I'm saying? Like you talking about, we act like renaming stuff will lead to forgetting something, or renaming stuff will lead to resolving whatever the conflict is. And I am a little skeptical about that, to be honest with you, Sinead. I'm skeptical about renaming it just for the sake of political correctness versus renaming it and saying like, this is something else that has to be to it. Because maybe it's just because I'm tired of performative measures. I'm just tired of performative measures. And I think that our people at this day and time in 2024 in America, I think our people we are walking away from those type of efforts and saying, look, I don't care what you name a bridge. I don't care who you have on. Change something of substance that's going to make my life better. You know what I'm saying? We still got in the Constitution that we're still considered to be quote unquote 3/5 of a human being. But does that stop Black people from being excellent? Does that stop Black boys and Black girls from going to school, going to college and doing things? No. Now, will it change things, and how America looks? I don't know. I feel like I'm a little on the fence about this, bro. I'm a little on the fence about it because I never really thought about, let's change the Francis Scott Key Bridge. But I don't know, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think these are hard decisions to make because I think neither of us are wrong, and I think what we both say is meritorious. But I think about this partially. I think about, do you see how crazy white folk got when we're taking those statues down? That told me that those statues actually are powerful in their communities. So let's do it in reverse. What if we had it'll never happen, a Louis Farrakhan statue? Again, it'll never happen. But the point I'm making
you probably give him a Farrakhan alley or something.
But just imagine, because if it could embolden, if the negative statues embolden those people of all types in that aspect, could somebody as positive as Minister Farrakhan to the Black, what could that do for us? But then at the same time, you know what I start to think about? So I think about all the MLK avenues and all the Malcolm X avenues. They're some of the poorest areas in the cities. And that's why I think with these naming conventions, we got to be able to do both. America is good at doing, I like to remind people that while we were enslaving, not we, but while America was enslaving Black people, they were also building an empire to be the strongest power in the world. While America was doing Jim Crow, they were also sending whiteys on the moon. Isn't that what Gil Scott Harrison said? You know what I'm saying? Like we've always been able to do two. So I'm thinking in the same way of naming, what is the name? Shakespeare says that you can do that with also legislation that follows, that not only are we bridging this bridge for this community and that community, we are also following up by Senate bill this or House bill this or government order this. It has to go both ways. But I think sometimes we sit on just the notoriety of it all. And I think that's why it's important that when we talk about representation is good from a skin level. Like, I need to see a Black man like me, but that Black man, Black woman, they also need to be about something. So in a concept, the bridge name is important because vanity is somewhat, it plays a role here, but at the same time, there also needs to be legislation that follows. And that's the bigger problem. But the question is, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
All right, hey man, you talking to something. Look, I'm gonna share with. Let me first share this comment. Nicole Smith, you said I would like to see something named after a white person who was fighting for Black people. A white person who was fighting for Black people. That's interesting. That's an interesting take, Nicole. Thank you for posting that. That's an interesting take on it.
There's
and then talking about that.
If you're looking for a name, there's 40.
You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking of those of the freedom riders that were killed. Swerner, and I forgot the other name, but these are the two white gentlemen that were killed because they were riding with Black people during the freedom ride period about the civil rights movement. I mean, that is interesting. Look, I got to take another quick pause when we come back. Shauna, I see what you got to say. I'm going to bring it up because I think this speaks volumes about where we are with the naming of things. So I love your comment. We're going to get to your comment when we come forward. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
I need you to scream for your new beginning. 5, 4, 3, 2. I need you to shout for it. I need you to shout for it. It won't always be like this. Sooner or later, it's gonna work in your brother's favor, in your sister's favor. They shall not die. They shall not die. They shall not die. I want you to embrace somebody and tell them welcome to the greatest season of your life. Hug somebody, welcome.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for joining me. Joining me right now on air is my brother, Sinead Wakofor, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Specialist, activist, as we talking about renaming things. And this is very interesting. So we brought it up with the idea of naming some of these, I guess, landmarks after individuals. It was brought up that maybe we should start naming them after white people who have legislated, who have championed for black people. Many people are checking in the chat and say, what about John Brown? And yes, if you know the history of John Brown, yes, that is something I never thought of. So we can put that out there. But here's what I did see. And I like when Nicole Smith said that, when she made that point. But here's another idea, because now if you're thinking about renaming, what is being lost in that process? And this is why I'm bringing this up, because Shauna Marsh, our great culture crew member, she said, just like the Edmund Pettus Bridge, he was a KKK Grand Wizard. This is the name of the bridge down in Selma, Alabama, the great bridge where our people were massacred on that fateful day, the bridge that is still being used today as a symbol of voting rights in this country. Brother Sinead, what's your take on Shauna's point? If we rename that, will we be doing ourselves a disservice?
And that's why this is hard, because both, from my vantage point, it's like this. Both ideas serve two different political talking points.
Right.
From the same group. So, like I said, and I don't think there's not a right or, in my opinion, it's not a right or wrong way to do this. I just think it shouldn't be named after racists. That's my most important point. And what I find interesting, and I find interesting that nobody wants to explain, let's go back to our example. We know that, what's his name, was a racist, Francis Scott Key. We know that.
Right.
But if we say something now, right, folks will say, well, no, historical, he wrote our Star Spangled Banner, and this is how America has always coddled white people. Because let's use that exact same example we were using earlier. Minister Louis Farrakhan. Black people don't believe him to be racist. We want him, but then you all, white people, would say, well, no, he has been anti-Semitic, even though that stuff has been disproven. But it's, as you can see, the balance of power ain't the same. And I think that's the problem. You all know that this, in theory, that this person is racist, and you all will still go along with it. That's the issue, because if that is the case, hypothetically, then there should be a Minister Louis Farrakhan Avenue, a Minister Louis Farrakhan Memorial Park, so on and so forth. When it only becomes one people, this is the very important part, when only one people get to choose who is good and bad, That
the
is
problem.
slavery.
That's the problem. And the minister has said that, I think he had, if I'm not mistaken, I remember him saying, I don't want to be named after no little street.
No.
I don't want my impact and my legacy to be regarded as a street or some way or something, which I understand. But if you're talking about that principle of only one person being able to dictate who should be the ones whose names should be legislated, because those conversations aren't had with our people.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? We don't make those conversations on a city level or state level. A lot of the renaming stuff, that's on a state level. That is a state government thing, right? And we don't have those conversations. But I'm of this mindset very quickly before we take our last pause. I'm of this mindset. Will it change within the culture? Will we as Black folks honor the name? Will we as Black folks lift up the name? Will we as Black folks teach our children to remember that piece of property, that landscape, that landmark to be this new name? Will it be instituted in schools? Will we, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, is there going to be a whole campaign on this? Or is it just a renaming ceremony? We get a name and then that's it. Now, a lot of our crew are saying, look, we want more. Of course, this is not the end road. But guess what, crew? How many of our people have advocated for this when we gotten little things like this and then they stop the fight? They stop the fight. Now, we may not feel that way. We may feel like, oh, this is just a name. But for others, it's a huge thing. And I'm saying that we got to change the culture on that. Look, we're going to take a final pause. And Sinead, do I get some final remarks from you on the other side? Stay with us. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my brother Sinead Wakua. Here's the thing that I think gets to me as we kind of wrap up this part of the discussion, brother Sinead. The thing that I think that I'm starting to see, and crew, y'all tell me if I'm wrong or not, I think we're slowly getting away from a point from actually valuing and seeing the significance of history. Now it's coming down to names, very, very surface level information, Wikipedia style information, right? But not actually helping people to connect the dots, to see the significance of a person or an event in relationship to other things which affected us then and how it leads the way for us to move forward now. And so I'm seeing in this country that history is slowly being pushed to the side. And crew, y'all tell me if I'm wrong on this. But I feel like history is slowly being put to the side. And a lot of us, in our efforts to get people engaged politically, socially, whatever the case, but just to open up people's eyes and to raise people's consciousness, that when we bring history into it, you probably start to see people with a glazed look on their face. Eyes start rolling back. And okay. Because history itself, and I'm saying whether you talk about Black history, white history, this country's history is slowly fading. There was a study that MIT did back in 2018, and they said that truthful stories got less circulation online, or 2 times less circulation online than non-truthful stories. People don't want to hear the truth more and more each and every year, day in and day out. We would rather rely our view of the world, we rather for our biases to be built on personal experience and other people's understanding, but not getting to the truth of things. And I think that's the problem. We can rename, we can commemorate, we can honor, but how many of us are actually taking time out to really think about the history of a person, right? Like, probably people don't know the history of a Francis Scott Key, or that people don't know the history of the Edmund Pettus. But how many of us are taking the time to even say, you know what, let's learn that history? What's your take on that, Janine?
I think you're damn right. And you actually made a believer out of me, because I think you've sold this to me as a continuation of history, rather it be a rewriting. Let us see that they were racist once upon a time, because we see that with the Francis Scott Key Bridge, but you can see that we're coming out of that into the new age when you look at the new Frederick Douglass Tunnel being built in Baltimore, state of the art. So that is a past infrastructure with an old name that shows you where we once were, and now look at where we are moving forward. And I think that could be a thing where new infrastructure could carry the names. They're opening up so many, with this Biden infrastructure bill, so many different corridors on rail are being opened up. Maybe we start naming these type of things after reputable people of different cultures and contexts. And I think it's a hard line to tell, because you want to rename it because it should have never been named that in the first place. But at the same time, we can't rewrite what we did.
Right.
And the only way you can rewrite it is by making sure that what you did, you don't do it again. And I think that is important. And I think that is the most important, where you can say, you can put a placard, this Francis Scott Key Bridge, somebody who was a known this, a known that, and even saying that there was a discussion. And I think we need to talk about that. Let's talk about the discourse. There was a discussion about this in 2024 after the bridge collapsed. And we decided to rename this bridge, but made a declaration that moving forward, according to SB, whatever, or HB, whatever, we will move forward to name stuff in Maryland after reputable. Because I think that shows the future, that we knew that we weren't perfect, because the future is going to look to us for answers the same way we're looking to the past for answers. And I think that's a great way to show that we didn't have it all, but here's how we showed our flaws and showed our future.
Right. Absolutely. Something that came to mind, just something recently, here in Los Angeles, there are some institutions, some spaces that actually celebrate March 31st is the day, but sometimes on April 1st, some government buildings shut down for Cesar Chavez Day. Now, there are only a handful of states that actually acknowledge and that go through that process of commemorating that man, Cesar Chavez, right? But everybody will always attribute April 1st as April Fool's Day, right? We know that, but there are only a handful of people, at least in the state of California. It's not a federal holiday, but it's a state holiday here in California that you have Cesar Chavez Day. And I'm just using this as an example that we can really redefine our history, not rewrite it, but we can redefine how we teach it, how we present it, right? That we can take some of the foolish stuff off of the calendars, or the foolish things out of our memories, and replace it with something of substance, right? I don't have a problem for us recognizing a great Latin leader like a Cesar Chavez. I don't have a problem if we remember a Native American, or if we remember somebody. Show the diversity. Show the diversity. To me, that's part of the progress that I'm saying. That you recognize people, all people, not just Black people, but we're talking about our Latino brothers and sisters. We're talking about Native Americans. We're talking about Asians. You recognize all people. Because if this country of 320 million plus people, of all of this diversity, all of this culture, and we still are operating under white supremacy and white supremacy narratives, we're not making no progress, bro.
Mm-hmm.
We're not making no progress. All these other people in this country, and these folks got to fight to have their heroes recognized and acknowledged. But their people are here. Their lineage is here. Their legacies are here. And I just, you know, as one who works in DEI, we still got a long way to go, bro. We got a long way to go.
And I will say this to kind of close this out. I think I say this all the time on the show. America is the father, quote unquote, mother, or whatever you want to call it, of democracy, or the pallbearer, if you will, of democracy. And we call democracy the great experiment. And if it's going to be experiment, if we follow the rules of experimentation, then we have to also be willing to try new things. That's the problem with this experiment. This is an experiment that wants to continue to replicate old things that we already know what the ending result is. We got to be willing to try new things. That's why that Cesar Chavez thing makes sense. But then, you know, also sometimes there's people who are emboldened, who want to do things that are, you know, who want to use these moments to represent bastardized folks. There's a push to rename Dulles International Airport in Chantilly, Virginia, to Donald Trump Airport. It's not happening. But I think even to the point, that is the great thing of democracy. Somebody has the right to bring it forward. It's not going anywhere, but they have the right to bring it forward. But we also should be able to represent all. America isn't white. America isn't man. America isn't just one type of nation. That's what I think the problem is. America loves to define itself. America is all of it.
Absolutely.
And if it's all of it, it should look like all of it in laws, in legislation, in buildings, in bridges.
Absolutely. Taylor, you said if the individuals would find the importance and act accordingly instead of attempting to force everyone else to prioritize the same things, we could get further. And I think that's part of the reason. I think a lot of people in this country don't have problems with recognizing other people's contributions or recognizing it's how it's done. If it feels forced, like you can live however you want to live, you can be whoever you want to be, but don't force me. Don't force me to make it seem like if I don't either agree, or don't force me to make it seem like I don't want to recognize it, like I'm a terrible human being. I may not just be in that space of progressive thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Or you know what I'm saying?
Equitable with the thought process, equitable with what you put. This is not the topic, but I can't help but think about the women's basketball championships. You forget who won.
We got it. Oh my gosh, bro.
You forget who won because the losers are being paraded around. But that's that thing we talk about equitable. You got to be equitable.
Absolutely. All right, my brother Sinedu, our time together has been very well spent. But I thank you, brother, as always, for your insight, and I look forward to reconnecting with you once again sometime next week, brother.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, bro. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's shift gears from talking about history and all of those things. Let's talk about parenting on the other side as we check in with Coach Trinette L. Collier to talk to us about what Boris Kodjoe is doing on his kids' social media. And I'm asking the question, do you agree or disagree? Also, should children have privacy? We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Stay with us. These discussions are on the other side here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Game on.
State of the Union 2024, huge night for President Joe Biden.
This was a CVS receipts type of night.
He dragged the hell out of the Supreme Court. And he said, y'all gonna see the power of women.
Trump's brain is melting as we speak.
We want to organize from a place of strength.
There's no confusion whatsoever about what they've done and what they plan to do.
What Donald Trump is doing is presenting a fallacy.
He is convincing them that he's all in it for them, when in fact he's all in it for himself.
We do not feel Joe Biden, in spite of the success that have taken place during this administration economically. There are too many things where we do not feel like he's had our back.
You should also be investing in the barbershops and the beauty salons and the hookah bars and the folks who are going to the club, and there's a way to actually get them registered because we've done it before. But if you don't have folks who understand that dynamic, then you're missing a big opportunity.
So we said we just celebrated. For what? Why don't you go to Selma to celebrate rather than recommit yourself to the fight if the very thing we went to celebrate has been gutted?
Republicans did not support a lot of the bills that were necessary to keep the country fluid. You can't only love your country when you win, right?
Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut?
This was absolutely the knockdown, drag out that we were really waiting for.
Black voters are the base. They're the most important base of the Democratic Party. There was very few language in this speech. At a time we see an attack on black history, attack on DEI. The end of the BLM racial reckoning thing has come to a complete end because there was nothing in this speech for that.
Our movement has never been grounded in two-party politics in this country. All of our movements ultimately get co-opted by a state that is anti-black.
They called the old because they knew the way, and they called the young because they were strong. And I believe there is a good combination of that, but we can have ideas and we can have visions and dreams, but we have to have our young people also working beside us because they are strong and they will run that race and they will run it to the end.
Activists, organizers, and young people have been pushing this administration to be on the right side of history and to do something about the issues that they care about.
While the Ukraine and Palestine are critical issues, they are not the only global issues.
Not a single black person who should ever let it come out their mouth that I'm tired. Because there is somebody else who came before us who didn't stop fighting.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. A fantastic first half of the show as we checked in Brother Sinead Wakor for talking about Harriet Tubman being on our currency and renaming the Francis Scott Key Bridge that had fallen in Baltimore. Big conversations, and we hope that you will join us as part of Team Replay to take a listen to what we had to say, and more importantly, to think about those things and see if we can kind of push the culture a little bit further along. Now, folks, we invite you to check us out on our website at blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure you do your due diligence. Download the app for free on all of your devices. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And, of course, we ask for your support, financial support, to be an investor and stakeholder in this digital movement as we bring these conversations to you. So, again, go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, make sure you follow me on social media at The Real Farajii. You can follow me on Instagram. You can find me on the X platform at Farajii. I would love to connect with you and build community with you. And I thank y'all so much for your support. All right, let's switch gears a little bit, talking about history and politics. And now let's talk about parenting, as there was an article that came out. There was a little something that came out around actor and producer Boris Kodjoe on how he handles his children social media. And this is something that I'm starting to hear more and more about, especially among parents, in an age where our children are just stuck to the iPads, stuck to social media and technology. And here to talk to us a little bit about this is our very own Coach Trinette L. Collier, who is a relationship and family specialist, and to give us some insight on this whole process and helping us navigate this thing. Coach, good afternoon. How you feeling today?
Hey, how y'all doing? I'm blessed. How are you?
I'm good. Coach, I want to know if I'm going to see if we can try to play what Mr. Boris Kodjoe had to say. He was on Jennifer Hudson's show some time ago, but he made a point saying that he handles the social media of his children, his teenage children. Take a listen, y'all.
Okay, I gotta ask, do you troll your son like that too?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
Because he's the baby. Well, he's 6'6". He's not a baby, but
6'6".
And he's a basketball player.
Wow.
So he travels a lot with basketball.
Oh, my
in
goodness.
Atlanta and in DC and all over the place. So I slide in his DMs and I clean up. I block and delete people.
You get to block and delete her.
I don't care. If I get to, I do it. Yes, absolutely.
Now, you and Nicole have been
Are you
married.
about to test me?
You know what? I do. I got so many questions for you. It's not a test though, because I mean, if it was, you'd pass because you've been married 19 years.
19 years.
That's the test of all tests.
That's right.
Like, how do y'all keep it fresh?
It's really, there's no trick.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't give up.
Ah.
Right? Because look, everybody goes through their stuff individually and as a couple.
Right.
You got to give each other the space to make mistakes. You got to give each other the space to apologize, to forgive. You got to give each other the space to grow, to mature.
And that was Boris Kodjoe talking a little bit about his marriage, how he keeps his household running together. Sounds like they got a strong union between him and Nicole Ari Parker, who is from Baltimore.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, her people.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. She got roots in Baltimore.
Okay.
And but yeah, talking about his children's social media, Coach Trinette, saying that he manages and monitors his daughter's social media, who is a teenager.
Right.
And he manages and monitors his son's social media, who, like you heard him saying he's a teenager as well.
Right.
This is very interesting because they are teenagers.
Yeah.
But what do you agree that a parent should be able to do that with their children's social media? Should they be able to slide in their child's DMs, block and delete?
I'm all for it. I wholeheartedly agree with it. We're living in a day and age of, we have the predators out there. We have people with ill motives, just anything. And I believe that there should be a balance with the privacy with your children. I know I'm old school, so I didn't really grow up with that privacy. Right. With my parents, there was no such thing as privacy, but I do believe there is a balance that should happen between the parents and the teens, and sliding those DMs. I'm all for it. I have nieces and nephews, and there were many times, they tried to pull one over us and get multiple accounts, but I'm always the tech person, and I'm like, listen, the conversations, if parents don't really stay woke, stay updated on the conversations, the codes, we will be lost, because the conversations that they're having in these DMs on social media it's scary and it's very disturbing. As a former educator, we've had to slide in a lot of our students' DMs and say, yo, listen, delete the account, because again, you're talking about teenagers and you don't know who's out there lurking on social media. Most of the times they're adults, stalking children or whatnot. So I'm all for it.
So, I mean, I get it, because we came from the same era, right?
Yeah.
And parenting, I think we need to put this in some context. One, when we were growing up, Trinette, we didn't have social media.
No, we did.
The hovering that our parents did when we were trying to interact with our peers was being on the other end of that phone line. Who are you talking to?
Or hovering over diaries. I remember getting caught writing notes or writing in my diaries, That was
doing that, right? Like a lot of girls, I remember growing up, and that's what a lot of girls did. They put all of their intimate secrets and thoughts and stuff in a diary. And so if you read through somebody's diary, you will be like, oh my, that was an utter violation, right? Like if you were a sister, brother, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm reading your diary.
Yeah.
That was a major, major violation. So I get that. So parenting has gotten much more complex though.
Yeah.
It has gotten much more technologically advanced. And I want to take a quick pause before we jump into this part of the conversation. But I think that there is, I'm not necessarily I'm a little pushback on this social media thing.
Okay.
Because of the age.
Yeah.
Because of age. Now, if you know, some parents have small children like, you know, 10 years old and whatnot, they have a little social media account. Yes, by all means, you sliding in DMs, you doing it. But I think once you get to a certain age,
you want that freedom for them?
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
I think that there's and I got to take a quick pause, but when we come back, I'm gonna share why. Because there's something I think that there's there. Folks, I want you to join this crew. Post your comments and share your thoughts around this idea. Should parents monitor their children's social media, especially when their children are teenagers? What's your thoughts on this as we talk about what Boris Kodjoe does, how he blocks and deletes? And do you agree or disagree with this strategy? Stay with us. The conversation continues on the other side with you, Coach Trinette, right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues. Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere. It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We are checking in with the inspirationalist, Coach Trinette L. Collier, as we talk about should parents be monitoring and managing their children's social media. We're talking about this as Boris Kodjoe has publicly announced that he goes into his daughter and his son's social media account and does, as he calls it, cleanup. He doesn't just do this for the daughter. He does this for his son, who is an emerging basketball star. Yeah. And he blocks and deletes with no shame in his game. He does it. But it opens up the conversation about whether that is the best thing to do. I'm not going to say right or wrong because that's moral. But I'm just saying, is that the best thing to do? Especially if you are trying to build a relationship with your children, if you're trying to create some sense of trust. And there's another part of this, but I want to kind of go back to this idea of social media because it's interesting. We want, and I think now more than ever, Coach, we want our children to have a very, I would say, beneficial relationship with technology and social media. Right. I see, and I understand because we use social media to showcase our children, right? To showcase how beautiful our children are, showcase their talents and skills, showcase their achievements and all of those things, right? Right. And so we expose them to social media very, very early on in their growth and development. From the cutest baby to the teenager that is walking the stage for graduation, that child's life plays out on social media.
That's so true. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so they are accustomed to that. Now, do we encourage that we should go into it? I'm a little bit, again, I think there's an age requirement. I think there's an age part of this conversation that has to be considered.
Yeah.
You know, your child is 9, 10, 11 years old. Absolutely. I think you can go in there, you're monitoring. But if your child is 17, 18 years old, they still living at home.
Right.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, you know, back in the day, 18 years old, you were deemed an adult. Shit, excuse my life. Not today.
Not today.
You remember back in the day, our parents used to talk about at 18, you get kicked
out.
No. At 18, your ass staying home. You ain't getting kicked out until you get to that place where I feel comfortable for you to be out in the world by yourself.
Yeah.
However long that takes. Because I'm not throwing you to the wolves on the sake of growing up. That's just me. That's just Farajii talking. I ain't throwing my daughter out to the wolves, nor am I throwing my son out into the wolves. No, hey, son, you a man now. No. That was back in the day. I remember hearing that talk.
Yeah.
But when you get to that age, I'm thinking that you should kind of let off the reins a little bit and give them the space.
I think around that 17, 18 age, if they're still at home, that 17 to, you know, if you've set the foundation in your home, you know, I always talk about that communication part, setting that, having those conversations. And I feel like if you have those honest conversations throughout their childhood about social media, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think they should be okay, you know, to start handling their DMs, you know, around that 17 and 18-year-old at that age. Because again, for me, I don't have children. I have nieces and nephews, but I played a huge part in their social media era because their parents were not tech savvy like that, right? So they would call on auntie. And so I would be the one to say, listen, no, this conversation right here is something is not right. Or this conversation is just between them and their friends, or whether they're talking about school or whatnot. So you have to have that balance. You have to have that conversation and to understand, you know, and have that conversation with your children. Say, listen, these are inappropriate type of conversations. These are, you know, you have to spell it out in these days and time. You can't have that birds and the bees hidden talk anymore. Everything has to be straight up. Yes, it has to be. You know, it's like playing sports. You know, you right now, every play, everything. The conversation needs to happen. And I used to tell my parents all the time, especially elementary, they should, if they're going to have a phone, that's fine, because I know, you know, for safety reasons or whatever, but you should be monitoring their every conversation, every text message on their phones. If they have social media accounts, you should be have parental rights to their social media. Again, teenagers, I think in that 16 to 18 range, you know, you start you start trusting them more because you've had that talk with them. You've had, you know, you've kept it real with them.
And I think that's important. Nicole Spicer, thank you for checking in. You said everyone else monitors our social media accounts. So if parents monitor their children's social media, I don't see an issue. So many young people have been lured, kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered. And I understand that. Yeah. And I understand that. I'm not advocating that we should not be present. I understand that. I think, though, we got to figure out the balance point. And this has always been my challenge just as a parent, right?
Yeah.
Because I grew up under my dad, who was like, my dad was hardcore to the, you know what I'm saying? He really was hardcore. But I realized I can't necessarily be hardcore like that to my own children.
Right.
Because it did do some things to me that I was like, I don't agree with that, right? And that's fine, because we grow up into those things. Yeah. But yes, everybody monitors our account. But again, I'm more of, now am I going to block and delete? part of me feels like, are you saying that you don't trust your son's decision making?
Oh, yeah.
Are you saying that you didn't, whatever foundation you gave your son or your daughter, that they won't implement those ideas, those principles, they don't implement those lessons? What are we saying here?
That's a good
because
point.
Who said this? Taylor, you said consideration. When our kids go out the door to learn and socialize with all sorts of other people, bits of those influences come home with them, little bits at a time. And that's the thing. Like, you got to make sure it's like a little test. You teach them something, and then the world is going to bring that same test to them. And you got to kind of just observe to see how they handle it. When my son told me about certain issues in school with his relationship with friends or something, and I asked him, well, how did you handle it? And then he tells me, I'm waiting for him to tell me so I can get a sense of where his head is at. If he said, Dad, I don't know what to do, or Dad, this is what I told my friends, and this is what, now I'm starting to realize, okay, you're starting to pick up on things. But I think part of it is like, I got to ask that question. If I had Boris on the line right now, I'd be like, Brother Boris, do you trust your son? Do you trust your daughter?
That's a good question. I mean, first of all, my hat goes off to you all parents. Y'all need an award every day because, you know, the battles that are out there every day, you're trying to, and y'all are great parents, and you're trying to protect your children from the world. And it is a task, right? As a former educator, I see that all the time when I come across great parents. And I know there's this, you know, it's just this task, right? And that you brought up a good point. Do I trust my child enough, you know, from the teachings, from, you know, our conversations that we've had? Do I trust, you know, and that can be iffy, because I think it's not that you don't trust them. I think it's more so that you're trying to really protect them, you know. And
but see, even in that, Coach, and I know even in that, and I got to take this quick pause, but even in that, do we put the seed in our children's minds? And trust me, we're confronted with this in this house.
Yeah.
Do you put the seed in the children's mind that the world is a big, scary place?
Yeah. I know that is so.
You see what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Like, when we present the world to our children, do you say, like, there is a scary, and I'm not saying this to be facetious or to be naive, but I'm really saying that, like, when you present the world to your children, like when they're like little small children, like I have a 4-year-old. When I talk to my 4-year-old, she sees sunshine and flowers and rainbows.
That's me. Yes, that was me.
But then I got a 10-year-old, and then I'm gonna be like, yeah, son, you got to watch out for people that's kind of, just keep your eyes open, keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah.
And the challenge, I think, of being parents today is, how do you present the world to your children?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you can't sit down with your child and be like, hey, here's what's going to happen in the world. Blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? Some things they're going to have to kind of like run into, hear about, see their friends going through a situation, and then you got to kind of help them to kind of process it. But do we present the world as a big, scary, ugly place? Or do we present the world to our children where we're like, you know what? There are some ugly elements to this world, but there's also some beautiful elements. And I think even from us, like if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you probably scarred.
Very.
We got trauma over trauma in the 80s.
Very.
We call it black parenting. Somebody else might call it black trauma.
It's trauma. It is trauma. You know, when you scared. But
look, I got to take a quick pause. And Coach, we're going to talk about it on the other side. Let's throw in the fact that we also asked the question, should children get privacy? And I think Coach and I are on two different ends on this, y'all. I think y'all going to actually see me and Coach Jeanette go back and forth on this. We're going to talk a little bit about it. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues.
Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere.
It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, the inspirationalist and relationship and family coach, Coach Trinette L. Collier, as we talk about not just facts of children being on social media. Now, I want to throw in the mix, Coach, where we're talking about should children have privacy, right?
Yeah.
Not just being online, but should they go in the house and be able to close their doors?
I'm old school. However,
wait, hold on. Hey, Coach, in your household, do you take off the joint? You just unscrew the hinges and you just they be like, "Mama, I just Auntie,
listen.
You ain't got no doors in this
You
house.
ain't got no doors.
You ain't got no doors to
no
slam, no doors to close."
But you know, I want to say that's the reason why I don't have my doors closed now. My husband, he was like, "Why do you leave the door open?" I'm like, "I don't know. I think it's just from childhood." It's trauma. But you know, I was reading this article and it made some good points, because when you think about it, there was no balance when we grew up. You know, my dad was the realist, so he did present the world as, listen, the world is not your friend, you know, whereas my mom was that rainbows and everybody's gonna be, you know, nice or whatever. And I end up getting that part of that you know, I end up taking on that, like, everybody's so nice in the world or whatnot. So I think over time, there has to be a balance that fits you and your family. Of course, the balance is not going to look the same for everybody, but between in your family, you have to create that balance. And now, as I was reading some of these, the why privacy is important to teens, it did make sense. You know, it did make sense. You know, creating that confidence, you know, that trust factor. Because you want to trust your children, and your children want to be able to trust you as a parent, you know? So I really do, after reading and putting it into thought, I'm like, I can see the privacy, but you know, like, let's not overboard. Let's not go overboard with privacy though.
Let's not go overboard with privacy. All right, so here's the article that Coach Trinette is talking about. This is from verywellfamily.com. And there was an article that was written by a woman by the name of Denise Whitmer. This actually came out back in 2022, but I think it still speaks to where we are today. And in this article, it was a family therapist, Dr. Angela Lamson, talks about the link between privacy and trust. And I want to share just a little bit of what it was discussed in this piece, this article. Take a look at this, folks, because this is very interesting. Privacy and trust link back to attachment. I'm gonna bring on that. I'm gonna talk about that in a moment, said Dr. Lamson. As your child ages, if you've cultivated an open dialogue and trust-based bond, you'll be able to grant them more and more freedoms and the privacy that goes along with burgeoning independence. Giving teens space and privacy lets them feel trusted as well as capable, independent, and self-assured. Allowing them appropriate levels of privacy shows them that you trust their judgment, intentions, decision making, and ability to follow your rules.
Mm-hmm. I can see
think
that.
I think there is something to that. Now,
Yeah.
if we want to take this, when I said the piece that says privacy and trust link back to attachment, the first thing that came to my mind, and I know you've heard this in your work, Coach, what is your attachment style, right? In terms of relationships, whether you have a secure attachment style, whether you have an anxious attachment style. And that's what I'm saying, like, because a lot of who we are and how we are starts in the household that we grew up in.
Yeah.
And it's rooted in the relationships. Our first relationship is with our parents, right? And we learn how to relate to people. We learn how to relate. Girls learn how to relate to boys based on their relationship with their dads, and vice versa for boys relating to their mothers, or the girls based on their relationship with their mothers. And so when you talk about all of that being built up, when you're talking about all of that being confirmed and serving as the foundation for who we are, especially going into romantic relationships, even friendships, it speaks volumes. And so I think this is an interesting piece. I do think, for me, I think privacy is important, right? I value privacy just across the board in terms of, even for adults, even if you're in an intimate relationship, each person, you're still a different person. And you still be allowed privacy. Just because I'm married to you or I'm dating you doesn't mean that I have full access to every part of you, or full access to your belongings, full access to your phone. Like, and I think some people got that in their heads, like, well, we're together, so.
Ooh, you gonna open up another door, Farajii, on that now. That's gonna be another show. Because because if we married now, I got access to. That's
No, I'm serious.
But you're right.
Because guess what? Everybody should, and even if you got to ask what your intentions are. When you want to, and not invade, but when you want to have access, what are your intentions? Is it really because you want to know the person, or you just because you want to be Inspector Gadget?
Be nosy.
Be just checking in.
Right. But you do make a good point, because again, when we're growing up, for me, because I did not have that privacy, being the oldest of 5 siblings and just not experiencing that privacy, I end up gaining my privacy over time. And I'm a very private person, mainly for that reason, because I was like, I didn't have privacy privilege growing up, right? So now that I actually have that, I am very private, and so I think, again, because we did not have that conversation growing up in depth like parents are able to now, I applaud parents who are able to really sit down and have those conversations. It looks so different from my parents. And not to say our parents were bad. My parents were great, but they didn't know, because guess what? They were taught the same thing and they just passed it along. So I think with the evolution of parenting and the parenting style, it opens up the dialogue to have these conversations, on the respect, the confidence, the trust. Because again, as I stated before, you want to trust your children. You want to be able to send them out there and knowing that what you've instilled in them over time, that they're going to make the right decisions. And you're going to always worry about your children, right? I think that's just part of your parenting, but you will have a level of peace knowing that they're out there making the right decisions. Are they going to make mistakes? Yes, they're going to. That's part of growing. That's part of learning. But you also know that they're going to make the best possible choices out there, with their friends, in their relationships, and so forth. So I totally understand this article and where she was coming from, because I was like, oh, okay, that does make sense. You're building that confidence level. And then it also stated that you will have fewer conflicts, because I'm thinking that this will open the door for the children to be honest with you, to come to you and say,
Yeah,
listen.
and that's
Yeah.
and that to me that hits the nail right on the head, Coach.
Yeah.
Because when you do have that trust-based bond, as mentioned, when you have a trust-based bond and your children are coming to you,
yeah,
right, and you gotta and trust takes a lot of time to build, right? It takes
Right.
a lot of time to build, takes seconds to destroy, right? That's what I learned about trust.
Yes.
So it takes a lot of time. So if your family, if your son or daughter or your niece and nephew, whoever's in your, and they're like sharing some intimate stuff with you, right? Or something that happened at school or how they may be feeling, and we blow up.
Yeah.
And I don't know about y'all, but I remember when I talked to adults when I was growing up and they, you shared something, they just explode. I know in my mind as a child, I was like, I ain't never talking to them again.
Right, exactly.
That's
what you should do.
You good. Like every time that same adult say, how you feeling? I'm fine.
I'm good. Yeah.
I'm good. Because you can't handle it.
Exactly.
You're
so right about that.
And I mean, parents, we always say this. Y'all know what I'm about to say. We always say this. You can tell me anything.
Be the first lie. You the lie.
First lie. Mom, I'm having sex. I told you shouldn't have done with that boy.
Yep. That you broke the trust. And I don't think our parents realize that,
Yeah, that's true.
Didn't open that door for me to come in. I was one of those children. I'm like, oh no, I can't tell you anything because you just went off on me when I'm trying to share with you my feelings. And now you're telling me I'm going to hell. Okay, so I'm done. Like, I'm not telling you jack. So everything is written down in my diary, and I'm going to have a lock on it, and I'm going to hide it in some places where you would never find it. But again, that built, because they didn't understand the trust bond, between a parent and a child, they didn't know how to convey that to us. So, I don't knock them, but I think now as parents, that's when you can implement these new strategies and so forth, so that you can build that trust. Because like you said, it's so easy. Like, it takes time to build it up, but in a quick flash,
it'd be one conversation and that trust is gone.
Yeah,
that's Sean Marsh, my sister. You said it helps privacy. That helps children to develop their own autonomy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, like I'm that guy. I mean, y'all might disagree with me, but I'm that guy that's like, even my 4-year-old gets some level of privacy. Because when she goes to the bathroom and say, "Daddy, close the door," and she will tell me, "Daddy, close the door. I need my privacy." I'm not like, boom, no, you're
right.
No, I need to see you when you go to the bathroom because I don't trust that you're using.
Yeah.
I say, yes, ma'am, and I close the door. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's something that's simple, but that can scar her for years down to come, you know what I mean? Where she just doesn't feel like she has to be on her P's and Q's. So Sean, thank you for posting that. I love what Pastor Damon said. You get privacy when they start paying bills in the house. I'm just saying.
That was the conversation.
Stephanie Humphrey channel, you checked in and you said, I agree. My home, my rules. If you don't like it, there is plenty of housing for you to choose from. Y'all,
see, that's Black parenting across the board.
Y'all say y'all not traumatized. The 80s did a number on you, man. The 80s. The 80s and 90s.
I also learned that with parents, and especially if you have multiple children, that's the time where you get to know each one of your children. And I think sometimes our parents before didn't do that. They just lumped us all together. And so they didn't have an individual time. They didn't. It wasn't fair. It wasn't. It was not,
because my sister, I have an older sister, so my older sister, she was always the one to get into stuff.
See,
and then it'd be like one rule that really should just stayed with her.
Yeah,
was applied across the board to my brother and me.
And see, I'm the oldest.
Bro, you know how after everybody gets that after everybody gets punished, we all talking, real quietly, of course. We're all talking like, man, you shouldn't have done that. You messed it up for everybody.
See, yeah,
but you see what I'm saying. But see, I don't blame, and I know we got to take a final pause, but I don't blame.
Yeah.
You know, if you're still holding on to that, like we're grown ass people at this point, 40, 50, 60 years old, right?
Right.
At some point, you got to forgive your parents because they had limited resources. They did not have this. You know, they were just doing what they thought was best for them.
Exactly.
And because they were traumatized in their parenting by their parents and lack of parents, right?
Right.
So some way along the line, we have to be very intentional about breaking the cycle of trauma.
Yes, yes.
We got to be very intentional, right? Like the way my pops and how he handles my children now is nothing like how he handled me. Like, who are you, man?
The grandparents.
Before you were like, bop, 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 Mr.
Right.
He gets to my daughter, he like, well, whatever you want.
Yeah.
So it's, but I have to forgive him because I'm like, you know what? He came through an era of hard knock living and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But the intentional parenting comes, and I know there's a lot of different terms, but I'm saying intentional parenting comes where you're becoming conscious of the things that were traumatic for you growing up under a certain type of parents.
Yeah.
Versus what works best for your child, because that's a different thing.
Right.
The way you have to look at how your child is today. And I'm seeing a lot of particularly among Black boys, and I could be completely off, Cruz, so y'all tell me. But particularly Black boys, this is a sensitive group of little boys. Ooh. They are sensitive. You can't just yell at them, I'm gonna whip your ass and all of that stuff. Like, you gotta talk to them a little different to affirm their boyness, to affirm their Blackness, to affirm them that they're not bad.
Yeah.
Because they're so sensitive.
Yeah, that's.
And I'm talking about like the 9-10-year-olds. You know what I'm saying? These little Black boys, they are so brilliant. They're technologically advanced. They know they're so articulate, but they're not from the hood. Because we moved out the hood.
Yep. That's a whole
now
nother
they're
show.
Our children going to private schools. We're in special enrichment courses. We expose them. They're seeing the world so different from where we came from.
Yeah.
And then we trying to tell them, toughen up. But we left the hood.
That's true. That is so true. So
Look,
true.
we got to take a quick pause for that. Stay with us. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. Got my sister, the inspirationalist, Coach Trinette L. Collier, Coach. But yeah, there's a sensitivity now, I think, for our children. And I think we are at a place where we don't have to look at our children through the lens that they're all a certain way.
Yeah.
And I'm learning that. You know what I'm saying? The point you made, an excellent point in terms of how we were raised and how our parents didn't differentiate the parenting style with the different children in the household based upon who they are.
Right.
It's just one broad stroke. Like when I say, and you gotta, I think Pastor Damon, you said it earlier, you gotta check in and you gotta see the maturity level. This is what Brother Damon saying. You gotta see the maturity level. You gotta see where your children is. You gotta like really pay attention to them.
Yeah.
To see like how this thing works out. Now, if you're talking about that privacy piece, that's where that type of insight could be helpful to be like, you know what? I don't mind if my son, and I'm not saying you got to do this, folks. I'm just saying this is how I see things, but y'all can disagree. But if you check and observe the maturity and where your son or your daughter, your niece, and whoever child is in your household, you check to see if they can handle certain responsibility.
Exactly.
But you gotta pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that some of our parents paid attention to us back in the 80s and 90s, but a lot of our parents were working. Like, you know, if your mom was home, you know, most of the time it was the mother that paid attention to us, because the dad was either not around, or he was around, but he was not around because he was working.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You're
What you
right.
say?
I remember my dad used to say that, you know, don't laugh, Farajii, but
I'm going to laugh.
he used to say, my baby, he said, you smart in them books, but them streets, I'm a little worried about you, you know? So I would understand, like, I'm like, oh, as I grew up, because he knew me individually compared to my brothers and sisters, right? They were a little bit more street smart than I was, right?
Right.
But he knew with each child, and he knew that they could trust us with, right? So they knew that they could trust me to be the sunshine of the group, you know, be friends and so forth. So I think this is very important. And I would used to tell my parents all the time, get to know your children individually, especially if you have multiple children in the home, because I remember having a parent say, they don't talk to me. My baby doesn't talk to me. And I said, well, how much time are you spending with that child alone? Not as a group, not with his brothers and sisters, but with him alone. And she told me that she did not intentionally. She didn't think about those things, right? And when she started paying attention, when she started spending that quality time just by himself, she saw a difference. So I think there is that balance again, you know, when you're having the children, multiple children in the home, and that privacy talk and all of that, it goes hand in hand, because now you're building a trust, not just with the group, but with that individual child. So I really feel like, again, you have to create a family balance, and that balance is not going to look like everybody. I know we talk about the work-life balance and we're trying to do it like everybody, but you have to create what's best for you and your family. And if that includes, listen, social media, let's have a talk about social media. Let's have a talk about privacy and so forth, and just have that real life, honest conversation.
And as we close out, Coach, I'm just thinking that this is an ongoing conversation. There's no silver bullet. I think the only thing I think we can glean from this is the simple fact that you have to pay attention to your child. And once you pay attention to your child, you can kind of be able to, like, oh, okay, what works and doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
But that requires you to pay attention to your children. And a lot of us, I'm gonna say a lot, I'm gonna just say some of us, we probably got into stuff because our parents didn't pay enough attention to us.
Right.
We might have been transparent on the outside, but yearning for our own space, yearning for privacy on the inside.
Right.
And it's a tough balance. It's a tightrope to walk, because you don't want to hover over your child too much to the point where they feel like they just don't have no space from you. And then that when they come home, they coming home to a prison. They coming home, they have no rights. I'm like I say, I am for all of that. I believe that children have rights.
Yeah, I believe so too. I agree with you on that. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I believe children have the right to be heard, to speak their voice. They have rights to some level of privacy. I believe that children, because when they go out into the world, who is going to affirm that part of them?
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially black boys and black girls. Who is going to teach them about their rights in the house? Like, we already know they probably don't have that many rights or no rights in the world.
Right.
But they got to feel like they have some sense of humanity in their place of their home.
Right.
And that's how I feel like. Just like, if they don't have no rights in the world, they don't have no rights in the school, they don't have no rights in the neighborhood, and they come home, they don't feel like they have no rights. You are talking about a human being that is going to be deprived of a sense of justice, a human being that is not going to be able to feel like their whole selves, because they don't feel like they have the right to exist.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree.
Coach, how can people find you on social media?
All social media platforms, I am Trinette L. Collier.
There it is right there. My sister, Coach Trinette L. Collier, the inspirationalist. She's a fantastic voice on the show. Always appreciate you, Coach, for being with us. And more importantly, thank you for being so good for the culture.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank each and every one of you for joining us in the conversation. Make sure y'all do your due diligence. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media, and make sure you throw something in the bucket. We would love to get your support. blackstarnetwork.com. Also, follow me on social media at The Real Farajii on Instagram and at Farajii on the X platform. And let's continue to build the community. Man, oh man, we are making our way to the end of the week, folks. Oh my goodness. Tomorrow I got my sisters Kimberly Morrow and my sister Corinna Denise. Always excited to hear what they got to say as we talk about the issues. And we got some good stuff lined up for you and a whole lot more. So folks, I thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure y'all stick around. Roland Martin Unfiltered is coming up at 6 p.m. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right, while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Have a great evening. Peace.